Greetings. My name is Emily, and my shop is Yesterdaysstash. I'm from North Carolina, and the reason I came up with Yesterdaysstash is because about 30 or 35 years ago, we were getting rid of the old home place that's on my father's side, and a bunch of spinsters and teachers lived there, and so there was all sorts of fabrics and laces and needleworks, just drawers after drawers of linens and doilies and all sorts of things. And so we got to split them up, and so when I came home I had a couple of drawers full of that sort of thing, and I kept thinking, what am I going to do with all of that? So that's how Yesterday's Stash came, because for years I tried doing different things with the products, but I ended up discovering junk journals about 5 years ago, and I've been making them ever since. Though I am new to YouTube and I am new to Etsy, my shop is new. I have basically just been giving my journals away, and it never occurred to me that I should open a shop. So here I am, and the other thing I wanted to say is that I'm very fortunate that we live in an area where there is a really neat shop. It's called Scrap Exchange, and Scrap Exchange is a reuse, two huge warehouses of reuse and creating awareness of using things that people give away, so you can buy things for next to nothing. This book here is, and I'll show you throughout some of the things that I have been able to purchase to accompany the tons of lace and all the other kind of trims and linens that I have had in my stash for all of these years. So the first thing is I found this. This is actually from an old cigar box. It has on the back, I glued it on here, but it has on the back what cigar company it is. The book is actually 61 pages. It is 7 inches by 6 inches, and 34 of the pages are for journaling. And I usually include a hardback piece of cardboard, which I will do with this as well, so that it can be used for journaling on. So tons of different papers that the way that it is there is that it's just a whole wall of those slide-in papers, and so you can go in and just pick out any number of pretty papers you want, and they sell it by the ounce. So to start with, as you can tell, this is a Jane Austen journal. I'm a huge Jane Austen lover, and I'm a huge fan of British culture and England as a whole. I've been there twice, and I want to go back. So anyway, the way that I'm doing this is I'm naming these journals by a word that's in the book, and Vanity was the first word that came up. So the name of this book is going to be called Vanity, even though it's a Jane Austen journal. The word vanity appears in this statement that she says in the book of Emma. This is another thing that I've been able to find are these little cards here, little inspiration cards, and you can get them in little boxes. The last time I found one, it was actually at a cupcake shop. They were selling gifts and things. So I have included here some cards that include statements by Jane Austen, and this is from Pride and Prejudice, as well as pictures. And the last name of the guy that do those illustrations in the Jane Austen journal books that she wrote his last name is Brock, so I'm assuming that these are his illustrations. So here's a glassine bag with a couple of, here's another one from Northanger Abbey, and then here's another little statement, just a little, I got this at Zazzle, and just a little tuck spot with a picture of a vintage woman. So I'm really interested in the Victorian and the Edwardian and the Regency periods of England. This page is actually from an Edith Holden book. I've got several little places here where I've put things about England, just using up my stash, just whatever I've collected, I try to bring it together and put it together into a journal. This is a bookshelf since she loved books. If a book is well written, I will always find it too short. So these book pages here are from an old dictionary that belonged to my great aunt that I got from the old home place. It was actually 2 editions, and I brought both of them with me. This is just some music pages on the other side of that glassine bag. A couple of more pictures. This is a picture that they say that Cassandra, her sister, drew of her. So who knows if that's the truth, but that's what is, you know, I've read that in various places. And this is from Pride and Prejudice as well. So I can't tell you what book pages these are, but when I do get to one that I know, I will let you know. This is actually, I have a huge collection of old magazines. This is from Cosmopolitan of March of 1893, and I include as many of these as I can tuck into. They're really interesting magazine articles that are very easy to read, and they also have some nice diagrams in them, so you can use them for tuck spots, you can use them for pages, make things from ephemera, or, you know, just whatever. This is another one of those inspiration boxes that you can get that I found it at a cupcake shop. Just a little tuck spot. She had a playful disposition. This is something that Jane Austen said in one of her books. It doesn't tell me where. But here's an example of the kinds of magazines that I've collected, and I need to go ahead and use them. This is called the Gentleman's Magazine, and it's published in 1808. So you can see how, I mean, this is just writing here. There were no pictures in this particular little piece. But here's one called the I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but it's a magazine for collectors. Again, it's 1913 is when this one was published, and you can, you know, see that it includes advertisements in them. Lots of advertisements in this particular one, and actually there's probably not that much writing in it. Yeah, there is some, but just really interesting things that would make a great cover for a journal. So I need to include these. I've been collecting them. It's hard to cut into these and tear into these, but it's something I need to do, and I've been, you know, just really enjoyed doing it so far. It hasn't been too hard cutting into these old books. This is an old journal book that I found at the Scrap Exchange. It was all messed up, but it actually had some different quotes from Jane Austen. Make great pages for journaling on. I like to include, this is a little collage that I put together with Jane Austen in it. Like to include some positive statements, some inspiration. This is actually, the Scrap Exchange has tons of these ATC cards, and it tells the name of the card, what the person named it, and where they live, and when they did it. This was in March of 2007, and this is called Terrific Texture, and it was the person who did it, who put it together, is from Oregon, which is all the way across the country from me. So it's really interesting to go into that place. Sometimes you can find all kinds of things, and other times you come up not so much. You can spend as much or as little as you want. This is I started collecting old advertisements of travel brochures and things from England, and this is an old travel advertisement from a place called the Windermere, and Lake Windermere, and it is in a town called Bonus. But it's just really interesting to see how they drew it out, how they advertise it, and so forth and so on. And then this is also an advertisement for British grapes. I don't know if you've ever seen a stash, what we call a smash. These smash books. Let me see if I can get one here for you to just take a look at. I get these at Tuesday morning, 49 cents each. It's really interesting, the kinds of things they have. So I've baked some with tea dye stain and stuck them in because they do have, it's pretty much lists, and so it says a typical family gathering looks like, and so forth and so on. These are just some plain tuck spot tags that can be used. This is, I try to include a 4-leaf clover in every. I have collected over the years 4-leaf clovers, and so and I'm always looking down on the floor. Somebody might think I had lost a contact or something, but 4-leaf clover. These are some of those advertisements, and sometimes the advertisements have a border around them, and sometimes they don't. This one has a border that's included with it, and this one doesn't have a border. So I actually did some sewing. Yeah, there is lots of sewing in here. I used to teach sewing, so I definitely am going to have lots of sewing in my in here. This is one of those paperclip tags. Jane loved gardening. This is a just a longer tag. This is a book that I found, and it is all French, all written in French. Published in 1925, and it had beautiful pictures of infants. So I think it probably, l'enfant sounds like it's infant. So I've put several of those in here. Somebody collected a bunch of pictures from a publication from the National Gallery, and I got tons of these that I coffee tea dyed stained and put a little backing on it, so that this is called Still Life, and it says from the National Gallery of Art. Just a pretty picture. This is another one of my little book that I like to include with so you can just grab it and go and take your notes. Here's another one that's like it. Just a little spot here. This is, since I'm such a British English lover, I have collected castles over the years, pictures of castles, and this is the Carisbrooke Capital that's on the Isle of Wight, off the coast of England. Moving along here, this is a flower that Jane Austen would have had in her garden, the primrose. More of these are actually from Tim Holtz Wallflower book. I've made tags out of those. This is the picture that Jane Austen grew up in, this is just a picture of Elizabeth Bennet, and the first time that Mr. Darcy sees her, she says she is tolerable. That's in Pride and Prejudice. Oh, right. This is some statement that Jane Austen wrote at one point. And costume from that era, or garment or dress, wear from that era, from the Jane Austen era, and a page out of the book Emma. This is an old postcard with true love, and it has somebody's it has written a little note there. So the book has a lot of potential for you, has some opportunity to modify it and change it up. If you have any questions about the book and how I have put it together, or any questions about any of the products in it, I would be happy to answer them. I have some comments in the description box below, and I appreciate your watching. And this will go up for sale in my Etsy store. And thanks again.